Heaven sent.
Ever since the beginning of time, we as humans have made use of many different hobbies and activities to stimulate our vastly curious minds. Throughout history, mankind has practiced many different forms of entertainment, ranging from music production, performing arts, and even battling to the death in an arena full of screaming patrons. We've always needed a solution in our lives to satiate any boredom that came knocking on our mental doorstep. But is it possible for our entertainment mediums to also be therapeutic in some ways? Well, the answer to that is yes. Yes, it can. Countless studies have concluded the importance in hobbies as a way to relieve stress and also improve your overall mood. Whether it's going for a run, taking a bike ride, or even writing a script for your next YouTube video, when you partake in hobbies, there's usually some type of end goal you look to achieve, such as completing your run, finishing your script, or maybe even baking a nice delicious cake. It all brings a sense of gratification that is both satisfying and very much relieving to a person in their overall sense of well-being. Now, in terms of hobbies, there's a lot of different options out there, but if you're watching this video right now, I think it's safe for me to assume that gaming is at the top of your list. And ever since the creation of the very first video game in 1958, gaming has been an industry that continues to grow in colossal numbers with every passing year. And with such a booming industry, it's safe to say that the number of gamers are continuing to rise as well. And what started as a child's hobby to most has now become an expressive form of entertainment for people of all ages to enjoy. And not only are these games being used for entertainment, but they have also solidified themselves as a competitive sport, in which the best players are now capable of building a solid career from. But not everyone has the aspiration of being the best at their game of choice. Sometimes we just want to kick our shoes off, crack open a cold one, and let ourselves drift off into an immersive world much different than our own. The kind of world that we've revisited often, it never seems to get old. I'm talking about the world of comfort games. Now you may be asking yourself, what's a comfort game? Well, to be honest, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a game that you would typically play to unwind or decompress after a long day. And it's usually not a one and done deal. This is the type of game that you'll experience many different playthroughs with, and no matter how many times you revisit, it never quite seems to get old. Now, this is also a pretty common theme with movies, as many film fans will agree that they have a favorite title they can always count on to bring them a sense of peace. But what's the deal with watching and playing the same thing over and over? Shouldn't that get old at some point? Well, in theory, you would think so, but there's something much deeper going on with this practice. As we grow older, we tend to look back on the past with rose-colored glasses, meaning to only see the pleasantries and the things of our younger years. And as growing gamers, we also tend to look back on the games of our youth with sentimental value. Even if those games played like complete trash compared to the standards of gaming in present day, we'll choose to look past its flaws and indulge ourselves in that time period once more. This is a point of view that is often referred to as nostalgia blinders. Now, nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and if you clicked on this video, I'm sure you're watching it with Buscemi eyes just waiting for me to elaborate on some very relatable feelings you've been having. But for those who are still confused, let me explain. Let's say it's a Saturday morning, you're off of work, have a clear schedule, and decide to spend your day with some serious Mountain Dew fueled gaming. You hop on Steam and endlessly scroll through your list of hundreds of different games, only to think to yourself, there's nothing to play. Now that's a crazy statement, when thousands of games are readily available for us to play at any given moment. But instead of trying something new, you just decide to boot up Super Mario Sunshine and spend your day playing through that for your 35th time. No big deal, right? Well, yes and no. Because it's not to say that Super Mario Sunshine isn't a phenomenal game, because it absolutely is. But why would you spend your life playing the same game over and over when you could experience something new? Well, in short, it's because we sometimes find ourselves stuck in the past. Now, it's not to say that everyone who has a comfort game is going through it, because sometimes it's just become a tradition in your free time. But when we start to depend on those things we cherish so much in our past, that's where things begin to get a little frightening. But what could cause someone to cement themselves in a time period that has already came and went? Well, it can be a litany of things, but let's start with a common denominator in every person's life: stress. Whether it's the physical/mental stress of our daily lives or the constant pressure to provide, life can feel overwhelming at times. And in these moments, we will tend to look back on the times that our responsibilities were limited and life held a much more easygoing appeal to it. I mean, when we were kids, all we had to worry about was doing our schoolwork, finishing a couple of chores, and brushing our teeth twice a day. Now as we grow older, it can feel like our heads are spinning with all the tasks that we have to handle every day. I mean, I had to pay about 3 different bills, do a load of laundry, and run multiple errands in the process of writing this script. So, I feel you, my friends. But what stands out the most in our childhood memories are the fun times that we shared and what activities were responsible for our joy. So whether it's a middle-aged man that lives out his glory days vicariously through his son's football accomplishments, or completing Kingdom Hearts for the 7th time this month, it's all in the same vein and purpose. We look back on those moments we've enjoyed, and in times of stress, our brains are going to yearn for those feelings once more. So is it healthy to revisit these things that brought us so much joy? Or is it just a lethal dose of copium for those afraid to face their lives head on? Well, in my personal experience, it's up to being self-aware of your reasoning for revisiting nostalgic media. Just recently in the past couple of years, I had found myself in a very dark place. I was having a hard time moving past the joys of my youth, and essentially stunted my mental growth as I refused to face the many responsibilities that came with being an adult. I was a classic nostalgic head case, from buying countless Dragon Ball Z Funko Pops to bury myself in, and constantly indulging in the movies and games of my childhood. I was hoping that if I lived in the steps of my younger days that I would somehow transport myself back to simpler times, and experience the joys that I had felt in these moments. But in reality, that was an impossible feat, and this way of thinking became a practice that only held me back from growing as a person. You see, much like those who use a drug to cope with their troubles, the same repercussions can be felt with any crutch that we rely on for comfort. And if we don't allow ourselves to accept things for what they are and choose to live our lives in the past, you won't be able to stand on your own 2 feet, and you'll only hold yourself back from experiencing all the great things life has yet to offer. Now, in the case that you've never sunk as deep into the depths of nostalgia as I once did, you're probably rolling your eyes at me. And I get it, this all sounds so dramatic. But it's not all bad in revisiting our youth. But as with everything, moderation is key. The concept of comfort gaming is somewhat of a double-edged sword, as the overindulgence of any nostalgic entity can be detrimental to a person's overall growth. But these games made us happy for a reason, and if they continue to do so, then why stop playing them? Well, you definitely shouldn't. The hobby of gaming is one that is built on entertainment, and if you continue to find yourself entertained by the same game time and time again, then more power to you. But for those who feel they're stuck in the past with no hope of a happy future, you're doing yourself a disservice, as the only thing holding you back is yourself. The past can't save you, but the decisions you make for your future can. So keep your head up and don't look back. You'll be much happier in the long run. And before anyone takes this video the wrong way, I'm not shitting on playing the games of our past, as my entire channel is built on the appreciation of retro gaming. I just felt that I could turn my personal experience in comfort gaming into a subject that some can maybe find a little bit of help in, and maybe even feel a little less alone. Our minds can be very perplexing at times, and in moments of nostalgia, it can be hard to see what kind of mental prison we could build for ourselves. It's perfectly healthy to embrace your inner child and let the joys of our youth live on, but just remember to live in the present as well, for the loving memories of our past are only the beginning of the collection we've yet to experience. So enjoy the present as well as your 18th playthrough of GoldenEye, as everything's gonna be alright in due time.